Check myself. Well, I hope we're broadcasting. I think we are. Hey, let's party. Let's... Okay. Well, for those of you, I probably have nobody watching this at this point because this is the very first time I've put anything up. Been aiming to do this for, I don't know, 2-3 months now, and probably wasn't ready. Didn't have everything kind of put together that I wanted to put together. But you know what? Everything I've learned in my life, I've learned while doing it. You can't read a book for too long or study something for too long before you just have to kind of jump in and go. So, welcome. My name's David Easley, and the purpose for this broadcast, or this live stream, I guess technically I'm broadcasting, but this live stream is really for one purpose, and that's to reach more people and hopefully get some people talking. I hear a lot of voices out there right now. I have been watching YouTube for a while. Rumble not as long, and Twitter's kind of X is kind of brand new for me still. But if there's one thing that I can almost guarantee is that we are on a railroad track that is going to a place that I'm afraid of. I'm 50, I'll be 50 years old in June. And I'll be completely honest with everybody. I just have no earthly idea where this is all going to end up. I grew up in the 80s and I was afraid of nuclear attacks during the Cold War, before the wall came down, before Reagan got elected and that whole thing happened. My dad used to scare me. We'd hear large, dynamite type blasts going off way in the distance, and he'd say, "Oh, there's the bomb." And I mean, it would just freak me out. And I remember, just out of high school, thinking, I remember when the wall came down, when, after Reagan was elected, and just thinking to myself, like, wow, this is going to be great. The world is no longer in jeopardy of going to a nuclear war. And as all the technology just progressed over time, I can't remember exactly when I got to use a mobile phone for the first time. It was sometime in the mid to late 80s. My dad happened to have one of those, brick phones installed in his car. And I just remember thinking, wow, we are living in the most technologically advanced time we're ever going to see. This is just crazy. And then watching technology, go from the original NES to, we started playing in television. It went in television, ColecoVision, Sega, I think, and then the original Nintendo gaming system. And I do remember having our parents tell us, those video games are going to fry your brain. They're going to ruin you. And I was that kid. I was like, yeah, I don't think so. We're going to be just fine. Don't worry about it. But if you really look around, those video games, I think, have fried all our brains. Because what's happening right now, what's happening all over the country, all over the world, it makes sense and it doesn't make sense. I do have a pretty good feeling about where we're at, just kind of how the momentum's kind of shifting a little bit. You know, I'm not going to make this is not going to be a political talk show. This is not going to be one of those streams that, you know, I'm going to react to political video. I mean, every once in a while we might do stuff. It's mainly just for entertainment purposes. And to do what I can. We have the ability now. Everybody can use their voice. Everybody can put their voice out there and let it be known how you feel. We no longer have to guess. We know what the mainstream media does. They just hide everything. And I think that's just ridiculous. I mean, it's interesting to watch. This is definitely the most interesting period of my life as far as just trying to piece all this together, especially with the industry I'm in. I am in the investment business. This is not, like I said, I think I put it on the title. And everybody just understand, this is the first one. I was probably not going to start doing this until, you know, maybe the end of April, when I had some more stuff kind of dialed in and ready to go. In fact, I even got to see if it's online. I don't even know if I'm broadcasting. I could just be talking to myself. Who knows? But, oh well, if I'm talking to myself, I guess it doesn't matter. It'll record and we'll go from there. But I plan on doing some really interesting stuff here. And it's going to get better every day, every week. We're going to push a couple of initiatives, and we're going to do this right up to the election and hopefully get more people talking. My kids aren't talking. They're not talking to friends. I mean, they're just now kind of starting to build that social skill that I think you get from being in school. But my 18-year-old didn't even get to go to he went to high school, but he didn't go to high school. So there's a lot of things that I think we all need to talk about. And I hope that this stream and this broadcast will just encourage others to start doing the same thing. I mean, obviously you can really see that there are more people launching stuff. There's the type of content that I hoped would be out there. There's more people, you know, distinguishing themselves and kind of confirming that what the media is telling us is maybe not the popular opinion. And that makes me really happy. But I have been doing some posting over the last year and a half, and I've been a little frustrated because some of the stuff that I've posted, I swear, is being moderated or content suppressed or whatever you want to call it. And I just made the determination and what's the word I'm looking for? I made up my mind that the only way to do this is live, uncut, non-edited, just raw. That's the kind of person I am, so that's the way we're going to do this. Why don't I introduce myself just a little bit, in a little bit more detail here. Again, I could be talking to myself. I have no idea. If I am just talking to myself, then hopefully when you see this or pass this video down the road as a recorded stream, you'll get all this. But my name is David Easley. I grew up in a little town in Washington State called Gig Harbor. Gig Harbor is called Gig Harbor because a guy, forget his name, the ship came in, they couldn't get into the harbor, so they took a gig, which I guess a gig is a little boat, and they took that little boat into the harbor and they founded Gig Harbor. So grew up there, lived in Washington pretty much my whole life. Lived in Alaska, Anchorage, from I think the ages of about 1.5 to maybe 3 years old. I've lived in Los Angeles. I've lived in Farmington, New Mexico. I've lived in Napa, California. And I've lived in Washington State in a couple different locations. I'll be 50 years old this June. I would have graduated high school in 1992, but I got kicked out or politely asked to leave by the administration 2 weeks before graduation because I went home during the lunch hour at school that week, and I guess they had campus closed. But right out of high school, my high school ended a little bit early, so I immediately went to one of the local community colleges and took my GED, got that out of the way so I could just basically go to work. I was one of those kids that, I don't know, maybe some of you can relate to. I was one of those kids that I had those parents that said, you need to figure out what you're going to do with your life. You have to go to college. You have to buckle down, do your homework, blah, blah, blah. Well, I didn't do that. I didn't have parents who really had the time for kids. My parents had kids, but they didn't really want to spend much time with their kids, which was good and bad. It was good for me in the sense that I got to kind of do what I wanted. I got to raise myself in a lot of ways. But on the flip side of that equation, I didn't always feel safe when I was a kid. I always felt like I had to go find other, parents to, anytime a parent, you see, back in the 80s, all my friends just had open door policies. We could just walk into each other's houses. Parents didn't care. Today, that sounds like it would be absolutely ludicrous to do that. But believe it or not, that's what we did. Spent a lot of time with my grandparents in a town in Washington State called Yakima, Washington, which is considered the Palm Springs. Let's see if I have a picture of that. Which is considered the Palm Springs of Washington. That's a picture. Let's see if I can do this. I decided not to worry about that. Is a view from my grandparents. Look at that little reject little kid there. I was a unique child. I was one of those children who probably would have been diagnosed ADD at a very young age, but they didn't do that in the 70s and early 80s. So a lot of parents or a lot of adults just kind of avoided me because all I wanted to do was talk. I would just, yep. And there was one person in my life when I was growing up that just talked to me for hours. That was my grandma, my mom's mom. She even, when she died, I didn't get anything from her except for a stack of audio cassette tapes. And those audio cassette tapes were her recording, her and I talking when I was like 2 and 3 years old for hours. I just would not shut up. It's really interesting to listen to. It's my age, being born in 1974, it's not like I grew up in a time where there was no technology. There was a lot of technology. My grandma was kind of a technologist herself. She had kind of the first, she had the first typewriter that could erase. And so my grandma really got me into the technology of the day, even in the late 70s and the early 80s. And, but getting back to just where I guess you kind of see as you get to know me, as we get into this, why maybe broadcasting or doing this kind of thing on a regular basis is good for me. In fact, I think you all, whoever watches this, should consider doing the same thing. I'm going to do this instead of therapy. I'm just going to talk to you guys, and hopefully I'll learn more about myself. You'll learn about me, and maybe we'll find something in common. Who knows? It can't hurt anything, right? Let's see. Okay, back to, first show jitters. What are you going to do? So back to, that's not the right one. That's not the right one. That's not the right one. Oh yeah, that's the right one. So back to me, grew up spending a lot of time with my grandparents. Lived in Alaska for a while, like I said. And I was one of those kids, I probably would have been diagnosed autistic, but they didn't do that back then either. But I was a stutterer. I literally spent more of my time listening once I got into school. If I was around family and people I was extraordinarily comfortable with, didn't really have that stutter as pronounced. But having a stutter, in kindergarten and first grade and second grade and, and on into, I really didn't, I still, every once in a while you'll catch it. And, I don't expect everybody to point it out every time, but I was in speech therapy for 3-4 years. It was really difficult. I remember I was a real, in a lot of ways, I was a confident kid, but I was a real introverted kid, or seemed like an introverted kid, kind of had a hard time making friends because I didn't want to talk. Because I was afraid. Literally, my stutter would be like, couldn't do it. And I think that's what caused a lot of problems that I had in school later on, because we had to do a lot of talking in front of the class, around the room. I was that guy that went, oh, you got to introduce yourself. You got to talk in the circle. Oh, just that massive flood of fear and emotion just came dripping over me. And that was scary. But, so being a kid is tough. Being a kid is really tough. I can honestly say one of the significant reasons that I'm starting this project of just broadcasting every day and bringing, a different perspective to things is because, one, I think I have a lot to bring. I think you'll find that my life has been pretty interesting, and I've stepped in a lot of big frickin' potholes. I've made a lot of really poor decisions. I've made a lot of really good decisions. But I just want to give people the opportunity to maybe see how somebody else did it. It seems like everybody today already knows everything. And I don't know why that is, but literally, if, from a 10-year-old kid to a 14-year-old kid to a 25-year-old adult to, and on and on and on. I've been watching the narcissism videos grow exponentially, and something's off. Now, I don't know if it's the internet. I don't know if it's YouTube and all of the information that people have access to these days, but people aren't listening enough these days. The way I got to even be successful ever in my life and my professional career, I really do owe the majority of that ability to just the fact that I listened more than I didn't listen for a lot of my childhood. Now, my parents would probably completely disagree with that statement, but oh well. My mom is no longer with us. She died in 2017 after her fourth alcohol detox, hospital assisted alcohol detox. She was an alcoholic and a drinker most of my life. I was the oldest of two. My sister was about 5.5 years younger than me. And it was interesting, you know, again, like being the child of an alcoholic and a person who drinks, you, I think, build some defenses and some skills for survival that I just don't think hurt me at all. I think they helped me. You know, I've always been one of those people who tries to find the positive in everything. But there's not a lot to really say as far as the world goes today that's positive. And I don't know what happened, but this venture, this project is going to be that thing that I hope helps shed some more light on this. And I gotta do the media thing too. I mean, I've been using computers since I was 10 years old. Luckily, my grandfather was some IBM computers bigwig in the 60s and 70s and the first part of the 80s before he retired. And so everybody in the family got the IBM PC computer. You know the one. I don't even know. I'm not going to try to show any files yet. I just haven't gotten good enough on this software to do that. But so consider this a place where hopefully at some point when I figure out exactly how to do the chats, and I wish I could actually like have people enter somewhere while broadcasting in multiple sources and be able to like actually bring up video chats and be able to talk with people. Because I just want to talk with more people. I want to try to give an explanation to you all, like what drives my political values, my values as a human being, and kind of bring you along over the next couple years as we build some projects and do some things that I think will be really good for everybody to watch. I have a Series 65. I'm a registered investment advisor representative. I've been in the investment business since 1999. But like I said, out of high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do. What I was doing all through high school and, you know, for a couple of years even out of high school was I was lucky enough to grow up on the water, on the salt water, you know, kind of like on a big lake, but the Puget Sound is basically an extension of the Pacific Ocean. And a lot of us had boats and we would slalom ski, which I think slalom skiing is actually dead today. I don't think anybody really slalom skis anymore. But that's what I wanted to do when I was, 13 years old, is I wanted to be a professional slalom skier. Shocking that my dad said that was not a good idea, right? But, so all I did through high school was slalom ski, snowboard, build half pipes, skateboard, and work at the airport. I loved airplanes. I loved competition. I loved being on the water. And none of those things really had career paths that necessarily made a lot of money. But I didn't care. I just didn't care. I just wanted to have fun. Because at home, when you have a home life that's not how do you put it? My home life wasn't scary, but it just wasn't awesome. You know, I had the parents that yelled and screamed, and you know, my sister and I kind of just hid out and did our own thing. Sometimes I'd be like 5 miles from the house at 8 years old. That kind of shows you how well our parents had their eyes on us. But we weren't doing what the kids are doing today, I'll tell you that. But so out of high school, I had a stepbrother. My dad remarried, well, I think when I was a junior, maybe just part of my senior year, just starting my senior year in high school. And my stepbrother got into USC Film School. And him and I always made movies. We were making movies, you know, from elementary school, junior high school, and on. But the opportunity came up where I had the opportunity to go and live with him for a year or more in Los Angeles. So I did. So essentially right out of high school, I left and went to LA. He was shooting a feature film in film school. I don't really remember why he jumped right into shooting a feature right when he got there, but I tried to get an agent. I was going to go and attempt, you know, to get into the acting business, and just really I was just like feeling everything out. You know, everybody else was off at college, so I just went and crashed a year of school at USC Film School. One of the greatest things I ever did in my life was do that. Ended up getting a job at the Santa Monica Airport at the Jet Center there. Walked into the place and was literally hired on the spot just because I had experience around aviation. You know, that's another thing that I'll get into actually at another time because there's a bigger meaning to that. But my getting into aviation saved my ass. You know, I got my pilot's license when I was 17. Worked at an airport, worked at a FBO, a fixed base operation. So making that transition to a jet center in Santa Monica, it was kind of my first job. My first job was at the airport, you know, in my little hometown. But this was my first like real job, like not living at home. And I was pretty stoked. It was amazing. You know, talk about introduction to life. Soon as I get to LA, I think I'm there for a week, maybe a little bit more. But I'd just gotten the job at the airport in Santa Monica, and go figure, the Northridge earthquake hits. Now, living in Washington, earthquakes are not a brand new thing. Earthquakes are, we had earthquakes in Washington, but we didn't have San Andreas Fault earthquakes in Washington. And that Northridge earthquake in LA, my God, I thought it wasn't the first time, but it was really the first time in my life where I did just see my life flash before my eyes, and I thought I was going to die. I thought that was it. I thought it was over. I mean, it didn't help things that I was a quarter mile from the USC campus in a house that was built in 1902. And I guess the USC campus, from what I was told after the fact, is literally built on just like a bed of sand. So when that earthquake came ripping through, it was like your house was on water. It was like it was on the ocean in like 3-foot wind waves and like a 2-foot swell. It was crazy. So it really made my time in Los Angeles extraordinarily difficult because I had to commute from USC to Santa Monica on the 10 freeway, and all the overpasses just dropped to the level of the Santa Monica freeway. Or no, I'm sorry, the freeway's elevated over the city, all the overpasses dropped down to the city level. So I had to go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning, and on the way back, so it took like 15 minutes to get to work in the morning. That's about a zero traffic commute, 10, 12, 15 minutes. But in the afternoons or evenings, it took like 4.5 hours to drive from the Santa Monica airport to USC on side streets. It was unbelievable. So, like I said, I am going to go a lot. There's like an entire episode will be devoted to my year in Los Angeles, maybe more. There's a lot of backstory and a lot of stuff in those stories that I'd love to reflect on, because it all pieces together into kind of where I'm at today and where things are at today. But after LA, I left Los Angeles after about 1 year and got one spot on TV where it wasn't really an acting spot, it was a modeling spot where I had to wear an Anthony Kiedis skirt on a show called The Mike and Maddie Show. Probably one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, but those little things that one does in their life, those little risks that you take, are the little building blocks of confidence that then move you towards your next endeavor. So LA was huge, but after I got home from LA, I moved back into my mom's house, and she wasn't really much better. She was still drinking pretty heavily. We weren't really getting along at that point. She hadn't gotten remarried yet, but she caught me in my bedroom with a female. Back then, really all we had was boys and girls. Not saying anything wrong with what's going on today. It's just different. It's just not, people aren't used to it yet. I don't know if we'll ever be used to it, but so after that, one of my best friends in high school and I moved in together, and he helped me get a job at Nevada Bob's Golf. And I worked retail golf for almost 2.5 years. Learned the golf business from the retail side of things, not the green grass side of things, but and golf is going to be a big part of this broadcast also. You'll see down the road when we get into this more. But the skills I learned in retail were just, working under a local PGA section pro, playing golf as often as I could. Then I wanted to be a professional golfer. Well, we all know how difficult that, most likely. To be a professional, anything is difficult. Let's just put it that way. But competing at a professional sport, I wasn't even close to understanding confidence and security and what it would take to actually attain a goal like that. I didn't have people in my life that were, how do you put it? I didn't have people in my life that were necessarily, my grandma was, but the other people in my life who were close to me, they weren't really the kind of push people up kind of adults. They weren't mentors. And a lot about this broadcast is going to be about mentorship. I'm going to do something here real quick and see if this works. All right, let's go like that. No, let's go like that, and let's go like that. I hope this works. I got to go get my water filled, but you guys won't lose me. If this works, hopefully this works, you will hear me all the way down as I do this. But on that way down, or during this process of working in retail sales, it was my first time working a sales job. And the one thing I did know was, if you're gonna make any money in life without a college degree, the best route was probably going to be sales. So I was stoked. I knew I was getting sales training. I knew I was getting experience, and hopefully that worked. Not sure if it worked or not, but we'll just go with that. But it was really the only way that I was going to make any sort of real money was I had to get into sales. So the best of both worlds was I was in the golf business and I was learning how to sell. So we got access to a couple local golf courses and we could play on Sundays and evenings. It wasn't really that expensive to live back then. Not as expensive as it is today. But went from the golf business. After about 2 years, again, I just wasn't sure if that was going to be where I wanted to spend the rest of my life, however. So I decided, with the aid of my father, he wanted me to do something else. He wanted me to go on to school. Well, I decided, okay, what the heck? I'm going to go to flight school. So I went from retail golf and packed up and moved to, because I already had a private pilot's license. So I decided, okay, if I want to do something for the rest of my life, I love flying airplanes. So I went to flight school. Now there was an outfit in Farmington, New Mexico. Maybe, I don't, again, I'm probably talking to myself. There's probably nobody in here yet. What was it called? Oh, Mesa Air Group, located out of, I think the headquarters were in Farmington, New Mexico. They operated United Express, America West Express, and a couple others that aren't around anymore. They flew the Beechcraft 1900s, and you flew the Bonanza, the Baron, and then moved into the Beechcraft. And in the end, I was going to be getting like $120,000 loan to fly for this airline. Well, I'm a believer in fate. And, if this continues and you'll get to know me, I'm a big believer in just everything happens for a reason. I've kind of considered, a lot of my life kind of like the feather metaphor in the Forrest Gump movie, where, Forrest just kind of floated around like a feather and just fell into a bunch of things. In a lot of ways, that's kind of the way I've done it also. I've just always kept my options open and been ready to take an opportunity when it presents itself. And so far, that's served me pretty well. As we get into my later life, you'll see how, it's not always great, the things you float into, but for the most part, I had a pretty decent attitude. I had a pretty decent demeanor. I was nice to everybody. I was that kid who, I was so desperate kind of for friends, being that young kid who stuttered and had a hard time making friends. I was that kid who always wanted to provide for my friends because I wanted to keep my friends. So I worked really hard at that. But flight school didn't really, I had some really unfortunate circumstances in flight school. Turned out, as I was in like month 2, I was leading the class. I was number 1 in the class. And one of the chief flight instructors one time was just kind of flipping through my logbook. And she looked back like 2 pages and happened to find a biannual flight review that I messed up. I didn't get my biannual flight review, which, if you don't know what a biannual flight review is, it's, the pilot, I was a private pilot. That's basic, that's about as basic as a pilot license gets. Single engine land. I could fly, Cessna 172s and Pipers were what I flew, at home. And every 2 years, you have to go up with a flight instructor and do takeoffs and landings and basic maneuvers. Well, it turned out I'd taken people flying before before I'd had a current flight review. So I was like 4 days out of currency. She literally did the math. Like, wait, this date, you took people flying 2 days out of currency. Well, what did she do? She decided to ground me while they went to the FAA to find out if it was going to be a violation and what they were going to do. So I was grounded for 3 weeks, unable to continue flying with my class. So I went from number 1 in the class to like last in the class. And when you're last in the class, where you rank in the class is where you rank with your hiring status when you get out of your training, because you go right into their airline and fly the Beechcraft 1900. Well, this was my first lesson in, kind of what the fuck. Obviously, the FAA came back and said, yeah, that's fine. 2 days, don't think it's going to be a problem. In fact, I think I took my dad flying. So it's like he took his parent flying. So no big deal. They put me back on the schedule and I got to fly again. And I just was disgusted with the instruction. The flight instructors down there were like, we'd meet in the morning for a long cross country. I remember this cross country we took from Farmington to Sedona, Arizona. And the reason he wanted me to flight plan to Sedona is because that's where his favorite eggs and pancakes are served. The flight instructors had a big party the night before, and he showed up for my flight hungover and passed out for the whole flight. So I just was like, what am I doing? Then I found out that the starting salary for a right seat first officer in a Beech 1900, in a Beech 1900 for Mesa was $12,500 a year. Yeah, $12,500 a year. Now, it was the 90s, but $12,500 a year was poverty below poverty. And I just so happened to had reconnected with an old high school girlfriend. She had come down to visit me in New Mexico. And we just kind of, it was one of those things where we just decided, she was just graduating from college. I think the year before she had graduated, the summer before I left for New Mexico, she graduated from college and she was getting a job in Seattle. So I decided to just pack up, leave flight school, and move to Seattle. So next chapter. So this would have been my 4th year in college, actually, my wife had just graduated, so her and I were in the same grade. So I moved to Seattle. We get a place together. She gets her job. I'm looking. So there was a driving range across the way. I went to the driving range. They didn't have any positions. What I ended up doing was she worked for Anheuser-Busch. She ended up getting a job out of college that was really kind of a fun job. Is Anheuser-Busch basically gave her an expense account. There was like 9 people on a team in Seattle, and they were the direct marketing reps from Budweiser, kind of like pharmaceutical reps where they go around and help people and encourage people to buy Budweiser. They did that on like a massive scale. But not only did they have credit cards where they could run tabs for food, for drinks, whatever, they had all the box suites at the Sonics. They had all the great seats for the Seahawks. They had all the perks. So basically we spent, 2 years almost going out every night for work, for her work. And I had gotten a job for the distributor. What was I? 22? This was 95 when I got this job. Went to LA, got back from LA in 94. 95, went to flight school. 96. No, this was like 96. The beginning of 96. And started in the beverage industry. Again, that sales experience, I had some already, so it was good. But I couldn't drop right into sales. I was still young. and ended up dropping into a job for the wine company called beverage merchandiser. Well, what I didn't understand about merchandising was you got to lift a lot of cases of wine. So over the course of about 2.5 years, I merchandised, destroying my back, at these young ages. I ended up being so good at the job. Now be careful, all you younger kids out there. When you see, I was always out to prove something. I was always out to prove that I can do it. Because I had people in my life telling me I was going to be a failure for most of my life. Literally my whole life. Won't get there yet, but I told you it was going to be kind of therapeutic. But I ended up being so good at that job that the salesmen that I kind of worked for and supported figured out that they didn't need to be there to help me most of the time. So they wouldn't. They would just give me all the work and I'd get it done and not complain and not bitch and not moan, and destroyed my back doing that. But eventually made it to sales, had my own route, and met a great friend and mentor at that company. You see, I went the mentorship route. The way I look at it, you can go to college and you can get an education and do a specialty or do something. I regret not going to college because I think I would have loved to attempt to play college sports. I would have loved to play golf on a college golf team somewhere, but I didn't. And so I had to go the route of mentorship. I had to find people that would teach me how to do things. And this guy at this distributorship, it was called K&L Distributors at the time, which is now, I think it turned into the Columbia Wine Company. And, now consolidation has taken over and there's hardly any small companies when it comes to wine anymore. But right about then, I also had another job where I worked for Philip Morris. This was only like a 6-month gig, but it paid very well. Back in the late 90s, we had these long Ford Econoline Marlboro van. It was literally Marlboro cigarettes, the red Marlboro van. And we drove that thing around all over Western Washington doing the promotions where people buy, you buy 2 cartons of cigarettes, you get a free duffel bag, or you get a free hat, or you get a free this or a free that. I mean, talk about getting booed. This was kind of right at the beginning of smoking was on its way out. I mean, there were still smoking sections here and there. I mean, I'll be 50, but I used to smoke actually. My wife smoked. I smoked cigarettes. My dad smoked in the house and in the car. Everybody smoked in the 70s. And I started smoking at a very young age, like 12 years old, and smoked for like 17 years, if I really think about it. But this was back when cigarettes was just becoming like kind of a social faux pas. There weren't really smoking sections anymore. I did get a chance to smoke on an airplane once, though. Smoked on Mexicana Airlines from San Diego to Mazatlan. That was actually in like 89, though. That was like my junior year in high school. I went down there with a friend's parents where we had the whole back of the plane to ourselves, smoking cigarettes, laying across the back seats. They didn't even check for seatbelts. It was amazing. It's the kind of stuff you won't be able to experience these days. But so I did that for 6 months. That was fun. Again, it was more experience working with the public, talking to smokers, talking to alcohol, tobacco, or Washington State Liquor Control, because I think they oversaw the tobacco, or maybe that was ATF, I don't know, but we'd always get harassed. You're 100 feet from a school, you're 100 feet from this, you're 100 feet from a church, there's big rules. But so did a lot of golf, did a lot of wine merchandising, wine sales, Philip Morris, and continued to play a lot of golf in my life. And you're going to hear this theme. This is going to be a common theme throughout my broadcasts when it comes to what I owe a lot of my success to. And I do owe the majority of why, I wasn't a high school dropout. I was a high school kicked out. And I got A's or F's. I got nothing in between, really. I wasn't really a C student. I either aced the class or I flunked the class. Foreign languages, English, social studies, those types of classes, just so boring. Civics, anything art, math, science, anything like that was just easy for me. So I was kind of this bipolar, right brain, left brain kind of kid. I was more interested in learning how to, fix a tractor or rebuild an engine or play video games, play Super Tecmo Bowl or play Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. I was also an arcade kid. We had lots of coin-operated arcades in the 80s. And so you'd find me at the arcade with my skateboard. And we were those kids. But so about this time, my ex-wife, she's now my ex-wife, she's the mother of my children. We were actually together for 19 years, married for 14? No, married for 17, together for almost 19, something like that. I've been divorced for a while now, but so I don't remember all the details. But about that time, I had started playing golf with her stepfather. Oh yeah, golf. I had started playing golf with her stepfather. And I had no idea what her stepfather did. I just knew he was a great guy. And I was a pretty good golfer. When I was that age, when I was, these years that I was playing golf with him, I was probably a 7 handicap, 8 handicap. For those of you who don't know what the handicap system is, it's an 8 handicap means I would shoot on average 8 over par. So if the par was 70, I'd probably shoot a 78 on the golf course. Well, what I didn't really realize about golf at the time was that if you're a good golfer, adults kind of give you more respect than if you weren't a good golfer. So I was the young kid who was always playing golf. I'd been playing golf with adults since I was 8 years old. And if anybody's ever played golf, when you're a kid, or even now, when you have to hit a golf shot and you have people watching you, just for the same reasons I would skip school on the days we'd have to give our presentation in front of the class, it was nerve-wracking. You'd top it or hit it in the woods and, you'd run down to the tee and get off the tee before, the next group came up there because you didn't want anybody to watch you. And so because of that, and I think because of my communication skills, having got those sales skills early in life, and just was the kid who, again, I had no curfew, I had no supervision. So I was just making friends with everybody's parents and communicating and just spent most of my time reaching out and spreading the wealth amongst whoever I could find. But he'd asked me one day, would I be interested in getting into the investment business? And I said, well, sure. I'm always interested in opportunities. Yeah, absolutely. Had no idea what it was. And what he called it was an investment wholesaler. And I said, well, is it sales? He said, yeah, absolutely it's sales. It's a lot of travel, but it's good money. And I said, sure, I'll take a look at it. I had to get a securities license and go to New York for training, I guess. But turned out, looking back on it now, maybe it was because they didn't think I was going to make enough money for their princess. Maybe that was the reason, but I didn't care. I'll take a job if I can get it. And so I got into the investment business in 1999. I remember vividly because I was studying for my Series 7 General Securities license in Cabo San Lucas, where her father flew the whole family to spend the millennial, party like it's 1999. And so got into the investment business, and that essentially was, when I got into the investment business, and been in the investment business ever since. And I'm not going to get into, the specifics of the investment business and, the craziness that took place during that stint, wholesaling. Never been to Manhattan, never been to New York, never really traveled much. The first time I'd been out of, I'd only been out of the country to Canada, because we used to go drink up there when we were 19. Well, when everybody was in college at Western Washington University, we'd always go up and visit I didn't go to college, but I just went and visited all my friends that went to colleges kind of all over the Western United States. So we'd go hang out with our friends at college. But yeah, fun times, but couldn't hardly have prepared me for the investment business, because something that I found out a little bit late in the game when it comes to, I've always believed that if somebody asks you if you can do something, you just say, absolutely, I can do that. Because I've just kind of believed that you can usually figure something out if given enough time. I was that kid at like my grandfather's house where I grew up in Yakima as a little kid. My grandfather had apple trees. He had 500 apple trees, 300 peach trees, some pear trees, some apricot trees. So he had an orchard in Yakima, and I was mowing the orchard on tractors when I was 5 years old. Like literally, I think I might actually have a picture of that one. Well, I thought I did. But here's me on driving, I gotta do that. Round. So that's me on my other grandfather's bulldozer. That was about 6 years old. But in my family, we got to drive tractors, bulldozers, backhoes, all that stuff, starting at around 5, 6, 7 years old. So the confidence that you build as a kid, I think a lot of the things we did were probably considered pretty freaking irresponsible. I think parents would probably be put in jail today if their kids were doing some of the things that we did in the 80s. You've seen all the videos when toys used to be dangerous and all that stuff. In fact, this one right here, so let's see, my dad's the one closest to us there, who's kind of out of focus. Don't know who the next guy is. Then my uncle, then my dad's college roommate, and then a few of my aunts down towards the end. That was a family shooting day. I was 7 years old at that, and that was a tactical weapons training class that everybody took, that I also took. They taught you how to like raid a house or clear rooms like they do SWAT style. Those were the kind of things that my family taught me at an extremely young age. We got taught how to use guns and gun safety and all that stuff at a really super young age. And I taught my kids how to use guns at a really super young age too, because I know the sort of confidence that built in me at that age, being able to look back on it now, remembering getting that training, all these things. We were given a level of confidence by allowing us to do things that were way out of the realm for what you would consider letting kids do today, which again, like fully leads me, to down that road of kids are too coddled today. We don't let kids do anything. We don't push them. We protect them. They play everything virtually. They don't learn, these skills and build this kind of basic life confidence because these things just aren't available to them anymore. I don't know. Are there still farms? Oh, I forgot to do that. Are there still farms where people, let their kids drive tractors at a young age? It doesn't seem to me like kids are that interested in that anymore these days because they've got the phones in their face. And I get it. I know what the phones in the face do. I'm a phone in face when I'm bored also, but there's a lot of things that kids could be doing these days that could really be making them more confident, more, open, more social, because I'm sorry, but I see disaster on the horizon. Maybe it's my age. Maybe I am officially that old guy now that, I'm turning into I'm not going to turn into my father. I guarantee that. But maybe I'm turning into those old guys that used to say, oh, back, when I was a kid, we used to do this, and which I promised I would never turn into. But I think it's just all part of life. We're losing the greatest generation that ever lived, and that was my grandfather's generation, the men and women who fought in World War II to make sure that our country was a free country. And the fact that we're losing a lot of these people it means that these younger generations, the millennial and the Gen Z, and now I'm hearing about the alpha generation, and that's even scarier from what I'm seeing so far. But we're losing our ability to relate to one another. But anyway, I'm starting to get off into space, but hey, it's the first episode. Give me a break, and I promise they're gonna get better. We're gonna launch some stuff and do some stuff with this broadcast that I hope everybody's gonna share, because this isn't just gonna be me telling stories. Yeah, I'm gonna introduce myself to you all and tell you kind of the basic backstory of my life, because I want people to hopefully understand my perspective. I hope that then when I give my opinion, you'll know where it came from. It's not just, my parents' opinion. There's a lot of stuff that we need to talk more about, and we just don't. And I don't know why that is. I do kind of know why that is, but anyway, what else did I really want to get into today? So yeah, the investment business is where I've pretty much been for most of my existence. Now, in 2015, I did leave the investment business for a short spell. My mom went into the hospital for one of the last times in 2015. And 2015, I left the investment business really to try to help save her, get her away from my stepdad. My mom was basically killed by her stepdad. Let's see if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this or not. Pictures. So that is my mom. I think she was 21 there? No, 18. I think that was maybe her high school picture. But let's see what other pictures I got in here. Oh, there's me and my sister, or my sister and I, excuse me, for all you educated people. Christmas at my grandparents'. Oh, there it is. Me driving the tractor at 5 years old in Ackerman. I would literally mow that orchard all day long at 5 years old. All I would need is somebody to come and crank the tractor over for me, which I don't know if you can see that mouse, but that tractor needed to be manually turned over with a crank on the front. And I couldn't do that because I was almost the same weight as the crank. And it didn't have brakes. All it had was a clutch. So brakes, you just pushed the clutch in until you stopped. And I would literally do that all day long. There's the very first girl that I liked. Yeah, that was I think that was first grade. Redmond, Washington, about 3 miles from the Microsoft campus. Went to elementary school in Redmond. Wide receiver in sixth grade, maybe fifth grade. No, fifth grade. Fifth grade wide receiver, water skiing. That's where we spent all of our time. That is literally probably the number one reason right there why I didn't graduate from high school, because I had that boat and eventually got into a tournament water ski boat, and we just water skied all day, every day. Had to swim to get the boat though. It's my cousin and I at dinner at my dad's parents'. Me on the phone at about 2.5. Me pretty darn young. If you can find one of those bouncies, I think they're collector's items now. Those are the ones that could kill babies. And back to my mom. So, anyway, reason I'm doing this, the reason I'm just kind of giving you my backstory is because this is going to go somewhere, and it's going to end at a point where hopefully I'll have this broadcasting thing and all of these systems and this broadcasting software. I mean, I should be able to do it. The first time I shit you not, the first time I ever surfed the internet, literally on the internet, collecting whatever data was on there, was a company called CompuServe, and I think it was 1987. We had the first internal modem on our IBM PC computers, where I had access to Flight Simulator and a dot matrix printer, and I would print banners that would take like 2 hours to print and were like 8 feet long. My buddy and I would connect his Commodore 64 to my IBM PC, and we would just text messages back and forth in the mid to late 80s. So I should be able to do all this stuff, but it's going to catch up to us real quick. And for those of you who want to learn this stuff, I think you should, because those people who choose not to embrace technology at this point, if you thought you got left in the dust from 1990 to, let's say, 2020, the technology development now, because of the rollout of AI, is going to be, I mean, you don't need me to tell you, you can see it all over YouTube and all over, every streaming network. AI is going to revolutionize things. And one of the things I will do with this channel is, with my experience, I forgot to tell this, pardon me. But in 2015, when my mom, went into the hospital, I got out of the investment business and got into the recreational cannabis business for a spell. That's probably going to be 2 episodes talking about that shit show. But anyway, that was my break from the investment business. And the things that I learned in that business kind of lead us to where we're at today. They really foreshadowed where we're at today. But we'll get into that maybe tomorrow's episode, maybe the next day. I don't know yet. But what I plan on doing, I was the CEO for that company. And, with my background in the investment business, I was able to help, some people put together an accredited investment, a Regulation D investment product. I will use this stream to give a little bit of investment education. I will not and cannot give investment advice via this. I can't give investment recommendations. We might do a little bit of historical research on like maybe past events, which hopefully you can use your own extrapolation power and, kind of put those pieces together for yourself. I did learn to trade over this period I spent in the investment business, and I got pretty good at it. And it's an invaluable skill. I think everybody needs to have that skill. And with AI coming out, the stuff that you're going to be able to do for yourself that you couldn't do yourself before this, it's imperative that you learn AI, that you learn how to use that to help yourself legally and help yourself financially. And if you want to start a business, you know, I'm going to start a couple businesses kind of live on this broadcast. You know, I'll use this media platform that I'm building to give real life examples of how a business gets built, what you do, how you start it, how you form it. We'll launch a business together. That's kind of the point of what I'm doing here. Not only will it market what I'm doing, but I'm going to show everybody how to do some of the things that took me 30 plus years of making a lot of mistakes that I think will become very useful and valuable in your life. And if you're younger, if you're in your 20s or younger, I suggest taking a peek at it. Send this to somebody who you think might need to learn some of this stuff. I've been through 2 divorces, and I've hired probably 8 or 9 different attorneys to help me for various things over the course of the last 20 years. One of them was good. One of them knew what they were doing. So I do a lot of my own legal work now. You know, I will file motions. I will litigate for myself because I don't think lawyers are worth a shit these days. But we won't get into that today. That's a whole other topic, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. But this is going to be fun. This is going to be a lot of fun. And hopefully we'll get some people logging into this. I'm going to be real curious to see, going back and looking at this, if anybody logged into this stream, because I'm sending it out to basically everywhere that'll accept it, and all the platforms that I could at least figure out how to connect to. And we'll see if we can't find an audience and find a community, because I've got a lot to share. I've got a lot of funny stories. I've got a lot of sad stories. I've got a lot of super interesting stories. And another beautiful part about kind of me is one of the classes I aced in junior high school was photography. Way back before digital cameras, I loved photography. I loved taking pictures. And ever since the very first digital camera that I had, I've been saving every picture. I do have a picture drawer that I scanned in too, so I kind of have documentation from all these periods in my life. So as I tell these stories that hopefully you'll enjoy, you know, not everything's just going to be a lesson. We'll have some fun. We might do a little bit of paper trading. Might give you some tours of my hometown from an aircraft, in-flight simulator. I'll introduce you to my dogs, Lester and Rain. Maybe you caught, now there's Rainy sleeping on the couch behind me. She's as crazy as the day is freaking long. Lester, he's one of the smartest dogs I've ever, let's see if we can see Lester. Is Lester downstairs? Yep, see, Lester's down there sleeping on the couch. Wonder if you can hear us. Hey, Les! Lester! Lester! Yeah, he's ignoring me. He actually can hear me. I saw his ears move. He's mad because Rainey doesn't let him upstairs anymore. That's a whole other topic. But we'll have some dog park adventures together, and I'll show you what that means here. I think I'm really happy that a lot of people have found it within themselves to get a dog. Aww. Anyway, none of this stuff works yet, but this is This is Rain and I and Lester's kind of daily routine. See, I have working dogs. Working dogs need to be run. They have to stay exercised. So 2 to 3 times a day, we take these guys out, hang out at the dog park, and the interaction with other dogs is priceless. We can learn a lot about ourselves raising dogs. You can learn a lot about other people by observing their dogs. So we'll break down, people and their dogs and hopefully make things a little bit easier. I was raised with dogs. My grandfather on the farm, the guy with the bulldozer, he had 14 Australian blue heeler dogs at one point during my childhood. And I get dogs. I think we might actually be able to patch up a lot of relationships with a lot of different people, neighbors, friends, with dogs. Because if it's one thing that seems to me everybody can agree on is that we love our dogs. I think it's because, you see, I'm all done with marriage now. Never again. Never, ever, ever, ever. There's some very, very good reasons behind never, ever, ever, ever that we may go into in future episodes. But we'll do some fun, good, educational stuff. And if anything, I hope I just save one person from stepping in some of the same piles of you-know-what that I've stepped in. Because we don't have mentors anymore. We really don't. I don't see adults wanting to mentor kids. I don't see professionals wanting to mentor interns. I don't see kids communicating. Every time I meet a young kid, I try to shake their hand or say hi. And it's almost like everybody is just head in their turtle shell and not really knowing what to do or who to talk to, or there's just so much freaking divisiveness. And if we're going to put things back together, if we're going to turn this country around, we all got to understand here pretty soon that it is not the left against the right, or the right against the left, or the left and the right against the center. We all live in the same country. We've got a serious freaking security issue right now. I don't mind citizens immigrating to the United States. I just don't want to be unsafe in my own home, my own neighborhood. That's it. I learned how to use guns at a young age, so I think I can protect myself and my family. But there's a lot of people out there who can't. So once I figure out the chat, once I figure out how everything's going to work, and this will get better and better each day, I just ask a couple favors to make this as good as it's going to be. I ask that you share it. You share it with others. I'm going to do once a week, I'm going to do a market open broadcast. So that's, for me, that's 6:30 in the morning. So I'll be doing a broadcast from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m., which will really focus on the markets, global perspective. We will talk about investing. I won't be talking about specific investments necessarily, recommending investments or giving any sort of specific investment advice. If I can figure out the chat, I will figure out the best way to take questions. we'll just kind of get into this and start going. So right now, Wednesdays, it'll be from 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, Pacific Daylight Time now. And then every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, we'll start at 1:30. Market closes for me at 1 p.m. So as soon as the market closes, we'll jump on and do an hour stream, and we'll just see where it leads us. You know, this week is probably just going to be, you know, kind of introducing you to me and giving you a broader picture of who I am and what my backstory was to get us to this place. And I think it'll start making a lot more sense. Just look at it this way. I'm like kind of filing down, you know, think of it like chainsaw art. I've got a big chainsaw and, you know, we got a raw log in front of me right now. And I'm just kind of starting to carve that log. And you don't really start to see quite what it is until it gets kind of more than halfway done. I won't take that long. But, and who knows, we might go off on tangents. If any of you see or think of anything you'd like me to elaborate more on, please leave it in the comments or check it out. I do want to show you one thing before I go. See if I can pull this up. So I started a website this year called the Ackerman Alliance. My middle name is Ackerman. My grandmother's maiden last name is Ackerman. I didn't know the Ackermans, but I've decided, since my grandmother was such an influence in my life, that I wanted to do something to remember her. And my grandmother would be really happy to know that my mission with Ackerman Alliance is basically this. I'm going to fight to stop elder financial abuse. I'm going to help make people more capable of understanding their own finances. We're going to, when this is all said and done, I think it'll take a year, maybe two, but I'm going to have the biggest dog rescue in Washington State for sure, possibly the country. So we're going to do some really beneficial stuff for communities, working with people to reunite our country and protect our elders, protect the greatest generation that ever lived, as far as I'm concerned. Because if I see one more person, my mom was killed for her estate by my stepfather. There was a conspiracy with my aunt who hurried my grandma along to the grave for her money. And I know it's happening all over the country. And the Ackerman Alliance is going to be the vehicle that takes me to a place that hopefully one day no elder has to worry about being abused for their money or for their assets or for any reason. Our elders should be respected. There's not a lot of respect in the world anymore. Let's try to increase the level of respect. That's all we're trying to do. We'll have a little fun. You know, I kind of made it a point that I was going to maybe do some stand-up comedy this year. Maybe we'll just do some stand-up comedy here. I've got all kinds of stuff up my sleeve. So we'll see you Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday at 1:30 and Wednesday at 6:30 a.m. at all these same locations. And I might do 2 streams on Wednesday. I might do a morning and an afternoon, but I haven't decided yet. So not sure how long this went. Shooting to be kind of an hour long for each one. Again, thanks for hanging in there with me. If anybody did, again, I have no idea if anybody's actually in the stream, which I probably should have checked that before I got on here and did this. But everybody have a great Monday afternoon and or evening, wherever you're at, and keep fighting.